Thanks to you all for joining today's webinar. I'm Lyle Ritchie, your host for today. I head up our permanent recruitment division at Head Resourcing, a specialist IT, digital and business change recruitment agency where I've been working for the past 11 years. It's my pleasure to introduce William Forrest, who will be delivering today's webinar on driving diversity in the automotive industry. For those of you who don't know William, he is a recruitment operations leader with over 12 years experience in agency recruitment, starting an agency before moving in-house into Arnold Clark, where he has worked for over 6 years. He is extremely passionate about DE&I, and we're delighted to have him with us today to share his insight on this topic. So before we go into his presentation, just a couple of housekeeping points to go through. William is planning on talking around 25 minutes, and then there'll be time for a Q&A at the end, where we'll look to take your top 3 or 4 questions as time allows. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and use thumbs up icon to vote up the questions that you're most keen to hear the answers to. Please also feel free to get involved by using the chat function, which should appear on the right-hand side when selected. Finally, the recording will be available on YouTube over the next few weeks, so please look out for that. Before I hand over to William, we wanted to do a quick poll to gauge where the audience is on their DE&I journey. So the poll question is, where is your organisation on its DE&I journey? If we could all vote now. Percent just starting out, 78% making progress, 11% actively using data, and interestingly enough, William, nobody is continuously optimizing. So doesn't surprise me actually that most of the audience here are making progress. So hopefully that's an interesting poll for us to move forward with. So without further ado, I'll pass over to William to start his presentation. Over to you, William.
Well, many thanks, Lyle, for that incredible professional introduction. I actually started to blush there, and that takes a lot for me, so I definitely would like to thank you. Now, good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Forrest, and I'm the Recruitment Operations Manager here at Arnold Clark. And as Lyle said, I look after our Scottish recruitment team, and I'm responsible for the successful delivery of talent acquisition for our business. Now, on a personal note, I love to start off whenever I'm public speaking by telling you a little random fact about me, just to break the ice and get to know William a little bit better. So my random fact is that I know how to recite Robert Burns's Tam O'Shanter from start to finish. So I've decided that you're getting that today instead of a 20-minute presentation on diversity and inclusion. Now, I just saw that Lyle was about to have a heart attack. So I am just kidding, Lyle, so don't panic. But you guys will have to take it really easy on me today because I'm only operating off of a couple hours sleep and I actually think I might be on my 10th coffee of the day. So if you do see my camera starting to shake, or if I start to shake, it's the caffeine and it's not the nerves. Now, speaking of nerves, I have to say that there's a lot of pressure on me here today, being the last speaker of this series. All the speakers before me have been absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure you will agree they have given us some great insights into just some of the themes that is currently influencing our talent acquisition community. Now, following the insightful webinar from Lindsay on data and D&I, I've decided to focus my webinar and try to delve deeper into the complex world of diversity and inclusion. And I'm going to try and give you a real life case study of just some of the things that we are doing as a business and as a talent acquisition team to try to make Arnold Clark an employer of choice for all. Now, let's be clear. I'm not claiming for a second to be an expert here, but this is something, as Lyle said, that I am extremely passionate about. And at Arnold Clark, we have lots of departments working together on this strategy. And we aren't for a second saying that we have it down to a T, because it's always an ever-changing environment. But what I will try to do is give you some examples that are easy for you to implement and some small victories that we've experienced that might be able to help you no matter where you are on that D&I journey. So let's begin. Who are Arnold Clark? So I'm going to play a short video just telling you and showing you a little bit about our business. Now, that's a very brief introduction to our business, and I really could be here all day talking to you about Arnold Clark. But what I wanted to showcase was that we are more than just car sales. We are still owned completely by the Clark family, which is very rare for a business our size. And our family connection is something that we are extremely proud of here, and that we actually want to be at the core of everything that we do, and really influencing, our major business decisions. Now, I'm not scared to admit it. The motor industry hasn't got the best rep out there. Historically, it's because it's came with challenges. It's no secret. It's heavily male dominated. Car sales has been seen as ruthless, or that old stereotypical salesman that's got gelled back hair that will sell your granny when you turn your back. And overall, it can be seen as quite a harsh industry. Garages being dirty, cold and wet. And let's be clear, Arnold Clark as a business never want to be associated with those kind of stereotypes. And to be honest, it couldn't be further from the truth with our organisation. But we are really lucky to have our CEO, Eddie Hawthorne, Lynn McBurney, our Group People Director, and our current board, who have really set out on a mission not just to drive change within Arnold Clark, but across the motor industry as a whole. And, for anyone listening today, that's my first point. And probably one of the most important for anyone looking at D&I as part of a strategy. You really need your stakeholder and director level buy-in from the start. Have those open conversations with your leadership team and try and get them on board. Now, I've had people ask me, right, great, how do you go around doing that? Well, I think it's as simple as telling them and showing them the benefits it's going to have in the organisation. Now, you can outline that research clearly shows that diverse teams drive innovation, decision-making, and better performance, which overall results in business success. And talk to them the language that they know. Tell them that if there's business success, we make more money. Also as well, inclusive environments foster loyalty and job satisfaction, leading to much better retention of staff, which again affects turnover. And also explaining that a commitment to diversity and inclusion attracts a broader, more skilled talent pool. And finally, making them aware that we actually have a moral and ethical obligation for our business to be looking at it. So I think while you're doing this, you also need to kind of have an idea of what you're looking to achieve on your journey. But not just asking what you want to achieve, but really looking at why am I looking to achieve this? For us, it was really simple. It was actually that we wanted our employees to mirror our customer base, and that we wanted to create an inclusive culture for all, no matter in the background, perspective, or life experience. We want a workplace at Arnold Clark where our employees felt safe, they could experience a sense of belonging, and they were empowered to achieve their full potential. So instead of top-down decisions or paying lots of money to bring in external consultants, which a lot of people think you have to do, we turned to the people who know our business best, our employees. We took a big risk and we asked our employees to share with us what it meant to them to be an Arnold Clark employee. And there were 5 themes that kept coming up in this feedback. And we decided to implement these themes as our values, or more importantly, the pillars that we base our business on. And I believe, in my opinion, and there might be others that differ, but I believe that this was probably one of the first real steps in us trying to create an inclusive culture at Arnold Clark, because we included our employees in the process. And our employees come up with the values: family, recognition, progression, communication, and community. Now, this two-way constant communication has definitely proved invaluable to us. And the fact that we're able to get feedback from employees and implement changes that were actually important to them and try to base our business culture on it has been critical. It's also given us the opportunity to find out and have difficult conversations via focus groups on any maybe potential barriers employees are experiencing or any kind of frustrations they have. And that leads to my next point. Your employees' feedback is invaluable and they need to be part of this journey. And you need to take that feedback and that needs to direct your strategy. Now, when we set out on our journey, the data that we had was extremely limited, which made things, and I'm going to be honest, obviously following on from Lindsay's presentation, it made our job a lot more difficult. The only information that we had at the time was that only 24% of women made up the workforce at Arnold Clark, and that there was a massive gender imbalance within our business. We also had studies and we'd done research that indicated that 43% of women didn't even trust the automotive industry. However, 85% of women influence car buying decisions. So for us, as we had these terrifying stats, we identified that this needed to be addressed ASAP, and it was going to be one of our main priorities. So we went through a review stage and we really delved into why there was such a huge gender imbalance within our company. And over a period of time, we set out to tackle this and introduce initiatives to combat it. And if you look at this slide here, here is just some of the things that we have done where we've noticed that we've made strides from a wider business perspective. We noticed that we introduced flexible leave. We were one of the first businesses to change our sales department from 6 days a week to 5 days a week, being more family friendly. We introduced new uniforms, being more gender neutral. We introduced peer network groups for that two-way communication with our staff to find out underrepresented groups within the business and how we could support them. We also introduced regular training for our managers, and we have training on things like menopause and ways that we can support our staff. We introduced female mentors for females joining the organisation to make sure that they have had support when they've joined our business. But more importantly, and I will focus the majority of my presentation, we made changes to our recruitment process. But before I talk about that, and that's my next point, and I will just make this very, very clear, that when you have information in front of you, you have to be courageous to make decisions on the back of it, which I know can be challenging for us because, look, when markets are tough and we've got business objectives that need to be met, but we need to be courageous to drive change. Now, at Arnold Clark, we have, as I said, various departments working on our overall employee strategy. And I'll be honest, I am not an expert in every single one of the initiatives that we do. So as I said, I want to focus my presentation mainly on the area that I've been successfully involved in implementing, which is diversity and inclusion being the forefront of our talent acquisition and recruitment strategy. So similar to what I said earlier, when we started to look at our process, we decided to go through a thing that I like to call a research stage. Our group recruitment manager, Carol Ann, and my counterpart in England and myself took a cheeky wee day out of the business to review our whole candidate journey from start to finish. We actually decided at this point that we would include our marketing department in this, is we felt that it would be good to have outsiders, sorry if the MD for marketing's listening, looking at our process without our recruitment tinted glasses on. Now, this review included looking at every step of our process in good detail. So we looked at our careers page, our adverts, where we advertised, how easy it was to apply, our communication with candidates, our screening, interview process, and offer and onboarding. And I would say to anyone listening today, if you haven't done this, this can be such an easy and invaluable experience. As I'll be honest, we learned so much about our candidate journey. And more importantly, we found out the harsh truth that our process was nowhere near as good as it should be. And the process was nowhere near as accessible for candidates as it should be. So like I said, we decided to act on it. Now, the first area that we looked at was our brand and the attraction of diverse talent to Arnold Clark. Now, I'm not going to get into our employer brand strategy today, and that's a whole different topic, but we worked very closely with our marketing and communication teams to think of ways and come up with content that would try and challenge the stereotypes out there that were stopping people from applying. Now, where we done this, we found that actually worked really well for us was that we used our social channels and our Google Ads to tailor adverts to specific targeted groups of people. And we noticed that that worked well. But we also used these adverts as a way of showcasing visual representation of underrepresented groups to encourage applications for our vacancies. Now, we've also as well partnered with various external organisations to support our brand and encouraging candidates to come and apply for us. And so we currently work, just to name a few, with our Armed Forces Covenant, ENEI, and Womenthology. And we work closely with these partners to target underrepresented groups. Now, our partners in return provide us with various resources that our teams can take advantage of, such as training or attending specific events. But for me, I think it also demonstrates that, through these partnerships, that as a business, we are committed to diversifying our workforce and that we're taking the active steps to do so. And although that we've made strides in this area, I think that this is very much still work in progress and that we do have a long way to go as the stereotypes are still out there. Now, before moving on, I do just want to mention something that I think I should bring up, the dreaded social media. Now, I'm going to tell you, see when you're using social media, you need to be courageous when using it. We found that the nicest post, maybe tailored to a specific group of people, there can be a backlash on social media from trolls or keyboard warriors. But as I've got to say to you, you have to be bold and stick to that message and be committed to that message. And I'll just leave social media there. Now, as part of this attraction stage, we decided to review our job descriptions and actually some of our job titles. We worked closely with our job board partners to look at candidate behaviour when they were applying for a role, and specifically to look at the content and the structure of our adverts and were they accessible for all. And when we'd done this, we actually found that they were far too long, they were overcomplicated, and they actually used language that was biased towards males. And let's be honest, the structure wasn't really appealing. So we decided to act. We shortened our job descriptions. We made the benefits of working for AC and a little bit about our culture as priority on our spec, but we also changed the language to be more gender neutral. And that's an exercise I would advise anyone to do. There's a lot of free tools out there that you can get online, but we in particular used Total Jobs Gender Decoder, and I would suggest maybe having a go. It's frightening when you see how much the language actually can affect the applications. But we also found as well that I did mention we changed some job titles, and this was due to negative stereotypes. So for example, let's look at the roles of a sales executive. When you think of a sales executive in the motor industry, I touched on it earlier, you think of a car salesman. But we rebranded to a product consultant to move away from that old stereotype. And in turn, we've noticed an increase in applications from a lot more individuals. Now, the next step of our review was to look at the accessibility of our application process. We again leaned on some of our external partners to get advice on applications from certain underrepresented groups, as we wanted to make sure that our process was inclusive for all. So we decided to take the stance that we were going to make our process streamlined as anything and, move away from any sort of potential barriers that candidates might have. So during this stage, we asked for help from our digital team and our market team to look at how accessible our website even was, and we made some changes to it to be more user-friendly. We also, as well, made the call that our application process was going to be seamless. So we only asked basic information from candidates at application stage, such as basic contact details. We asked them for a CV, and we asked them for, in some cases, that require a driving license information. But since changing this process for us, we have noticed a huge increase in applications and a lot less candidate drop-off in our process. So technically, with more candidates coming into our talent pipeline, we've actually noticed an increase in diverse talent and within our talent pools. So also as part of this review process, we looked into the communication that we have with our candidates. And that we decided to take the stance that more communication was better than having none. But we wanted to not just have more communication, we wanted to give our candidates different forms of communication to try and make sure that we are appealing to all. So for example, in some of our emails to candidates, we decided to include video content with subtitles for those that maybe have hearing impairments. As well as that, we have introduced an interview preparation document, giving candidates information around what to expect with interviewing with Arnold Clark, which we have actually found has helped neurodiverse candidates feel more comfortable as they know what to expect in our process. Now, I want to use this opportunity to also tell you one of the easiest fixes for anyone out there that's maybe starting out in this journey. We also use this for our interview confirmation to ask candidates if there is anything that we could do that could make this process easier for them. Or some other people might call them reasonable adjustments. But it's something so simple that gets used regular by our candidates and makes them feel more included within our process. And we also as well have taken quite a bold stance that we decided that we wanted to offer the candidate various methods of communication depending on their preferences and what they would prefer. So for example, our recruiters speak to candidates via phone, text, WhatsApp, email, and live person, which is an AI chat function. Now, one of the most important areas that I would say, and this is a big, bold statement for me, I always sometimes sit in the fence, but I'm going to put it out there. This is the most important thing that I think anyone can do when it comes to D&I from a TA perspective. Have a consultative approach with your stakeholders all throughout the process. Now, at Arnold Clark, we take a hands-on approach in our recruitment process, and our recruiters or our recruitment advisors work closely with our hiring managers on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm not scared to admit it. We had to do this because we've had issues historically with candidates being rejected due to clear unconscious bias from our hiring managers, and it was an evident problem. It was clear that managers discounted candidates based on a number of ridiculous reasons, and I actually believe that we've lost out on some amazing talent because of it. And not to mention some of the feedback that we're getting from candidates at interview stage. It was horrendous. I one day will write a book about it, folks, so you can buy your copy from Waterstones for $9.99. But to tackle this head on, we took a bold decision, to stop sending CVs to the hiring manager directly. And we made a call that it was now the responsibility of our talent acquisition team to select candidates based on skills, experience, and it was now their duty to book candidates for interview accordingly. Now, furthermore, our recruiters then went out on site and carried out a structured interview on behalf or with the hiring manager, making sure that all our candidates were given the exact same experience, asked the same set of questions to assess them based on their skills, their experience, and cultural fit, and not bringing into play these unconscious biases. Now, to do so, we have had to put our recruiters through extensive training on things like unconscious bias, mental health, autism awareness, and interview training, just to name a few. But we want to make sure that they had the tools and skills to go out into our business. Now, remember when I said earlier, it's sometimes about being bold when making these decisions. Well, see, when we took away sending the CVs on to our hiring managers, there was a huge backlash out in the business. Honestly, it probably accounts to the grey hairs that I've got in my head right now. And sometimes I doubted whether or not it was the right decision we'd made. But you know what? We were resilient and we were committed to drive change. And although that it took us a lot longer than expected to build credibility out there in terms of what we were trying to achieve, we've found now that the majority of our stakeholders actually prefer the recruitment department's hands-on approach, as it's brought talent to them they would never have considered before and now are successful within our organisation. But also, and this is probably a bit of a touchy subject, I think it's important to mention at this stage, and this is why I think it's so important for your recruiters to be out there, or your team to be out there, having that consultative approach, is because we were able to have difficult conversations with our hiring managers. We challenged some of their thinking, we challenged some of their biases, and we continually worked with them to change their mindset. And there's nothing more successful than, seeing a manager change mindset and look and be so much open to change. Now, as part of this, we also do deliver a recruitment and selection training course for our hiring managers at one of our training facilities. And this is an all-day course provided by the recruitment team that covers some of the areas of the recruitment process. And there is a huge area of this course that is based on diversity inclusion and making hiring managers aware that they have a duty and responsibility to make sure candidates are looked after when they come on site. But again, the feedback that we found is that they find this course very, very important, and it has challenged a lot of their ways of thinking. So there's another easy fix for you. We made the course up ourselves. I think myself and one of my colleagues myself and my colleague from England wrote the course ourselves. So again, get involved and get your stakeholders involved if you possibly can. Now, you'll be happy to know that I am coming close to the end of my webinar. But before I finish, there is just one other area that I do think that I have to explore, which has been a vital part of our diversity and inclusion strategy, which is early careers. Now, apprenticeships are the lifeblood of our organisation, Arnold Clark, and they're really so important in the future talent development coming through the ranks in our business. And I've spoken about some of the ways that, that we've been trying to tackle stereotypes out there in the industry. And I truly believe that our early careers team are out on the front line, tackling these stereotypes head on with the talent of tomorrow. They do this with outreach with schools all across the UK that are close to our branch network. And they attend various school events or career events with an interactive apprenticeship van at events all across the UK. And what they're doing there is they're continually out there reiterating that the motor industry can be a career for all, no matter your background or experience. But what we're also doing is we're attacking that gender imbalance head on, and we're showcasing to young females out there is a lucrative career that can await them in our business. Now, back in 2019, in an attempt to tackle this gender imbalance, our early careers team launched a really cool initiative called Girls with Skills. Now, Girls with Skills allowed young females at school leaver age the opportunity to experience what an apprenticeship was like at Arnold Clark and to kind of get a taster for them. It is a fast track programme into an apprenticeship where they'll attend a taster day at one of our training facilities. But more importantly, they'll get a week's work experience in the branch. Now, this initiative was one of the first that we came up with, and it was one of the first of its kind, and it's become more popular year on year, and it's really been a goal for us of tracking gender inequality over a longer period of time. Now, I don't mind Lyle when he's looking at his watch when I'm speaking, but when he decides he's going to start shaking it to make sure it's still working, then it's time for me to give up. But before I finish, um, I just I hope that you've been able to take away some small things, the things that you can do that might be able to help you put diversity and inclusion as part of your talent acquisition strategy. But I would like to summarise really by telling you what I think we've learned when it comes to diversity and inclusion. You know, there are some small changes that you can make that doesn't cost you the world to do it or doesn't cost you anything, but what a difference it makes to your candidate journey, and it makes your process more accessible and inclusive for all. Also, as well, that you have to have diversity and inclusion prioritised at leadership level right from the start, and that's key to your success. And have them open and honest conversations with your leadership. But you really need to listen to your most valuable assets, your employees, but also include them on that journey. Be transparent with them and try to give everyone a voice in the organisation, from leadership to new hires, because let's be honest, it's everyone's responsibility. And I think you need to be real with yourself that it takes longer than you think. And it can be a bit of a balancing act, balancing the speed of D&I or the speed of your business with diversity inclusion. And that can be a challenge, but you need to be realistic with yourself. And finally, it's an ongoing process. It will always change because society changes, your business needs changed. But also as well, guys, you will make mistakes along the way. And it's about really learning from them mistakes. Now, thank you very much, everyone, for listening this afternoon. And I'm now happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that, William. That was a great presentation, really insightful, and I'm sure everyone on the calls had a few takeaways from that. So thanks again, William. I'm going to kick off the questions if that's okay,
Yeah, definitely.
William. So I'll just fire away. So first question from me. How does Arnold Clark balance diversity goals with other recruitment and business objectives, and ensuring they align with your overall company strategy?
I think that it's obviously, our business is to make sure that we're providing customer service at the highest level. And, I spoke a little bit about our values, which we've implemented, and these are so important and they drive our strategy as a business. So, having family is one of our values, which is, obviously being diverse in our makeup and united in our goals. For us in particular, that is an important part of our business. We want our employee base to mirror our customer base, and I think that's a really, really important point. Now, I think actually to mention on this here, it's always at the forefront of our strategy at the moment, but you have to be realistic, as I said. So I'm going to talk about something that happened last year. We were subject to a cyber attack. Maybe a lot of you know that already on the call. Again, that added to the grey hairs on my head. But from my perspective, when you're just trying to operate as an organisation, when all your systems are down, you need to prioritise the business needs first, and that's really important. So, your sometimes lucrative diversity and inclusion or other strategies that you've got in play sometimes have to take a back seat. But what's important is, and this is what I would say to everyone, is that you still have to make sure that they've not disappeared, because they never disappeared for us. They're always there in the background. And this is where, when I was saying in my presentation, it requires everyone to be involved, because when you do have stressful business needs, you need to rely on everyone to club in and see the small victories that you can do that won't disrupt business life as much as possible to make the workplace and also your recruitment process as accessible for all.
Perfect. Thanks very much, William. Really insightful there. So thank you. I'm just looking on the Q&A chat. So a question from listeners. What do you think was the largest single contributing factor in driving up application numbers and preventing dropouts when it comes to the changes you made to the recruitment process?
Yeah, I think for us, I would say that when we had specific types of roles, when you're looking for example, mechanics, and
Hmm.
you're looking for a number of mechanics within a local area, um, you know, you've got different people without in the industry that have different levels of skill sets when applying for roles. We did some market research and we actually looked at some other businesses in terms of their processes and what they do. And I think that that was maybe one of the drivers for us, is that we wanted to really make it accessible for all. And to do that, you sometimes have to bend your processes. So, for example, I've got an instance where we had an older gentleman who, really struggled to put together a CV. So he was trying to apply for a role with us, and he couldn't upload a CV. Now, this gentleman had, years and years of experience as a mechanic, and for us, that's invaluable experience, and he wanted an opportunity with us. So we found an adjustment to that process, and we. I think the guy actually emailed us over his experience, and we set up an interview with them accordingly. So for us, when we see examples like that, we wanted to make sure that our process was accessible for all, and that we wanted to increase female applications as well as other underrepresented groups.
Great. That's a great example of making sure as you said, your process is accessible for all. So, um, thanks for sharing that, William. Just another question that's come in. Any tips for securing leadership buy-in when the market conditions are difficult and focus may go elsewhere?
Really, really good question, and I did try to address that slightly. I think I hope none of my senior leaders are listening right now, but I think you need to really have them open conversations in terms of explaining to them how it's going to affect the bottom line. That's what your directors are there to do. In a lot of instances with businesses, they're there to make money, but you need to be able to showcase the benefits to them of focusing on diversity and inclusion and getting that kind of budget. But for me in particular, I think a lot of the things that I actually explained in my presentation, you don't actually need budget to do. And they're
Yeah.
small victories for you. But again, from your perspective or for anyone listening, I would say that it's about just having that open conversation and being realistic yourself. It's not going to happen after one meeting. You need to be continually going to them and showing them, examples of why it's very, very successful. We're just really lucky here to have a board of directors that see it as being critical in our business success.
Yeah. Okay. No, I appreciate it doesn't happen overnight, but
Definitely.
communication skills and building relationships is obviously really important in that. So, thanks for sharing that. You spoke about the recruitment initiatives. I know the Girls with Skills, I think, was a real success, but could you maybe explore some of these in a bit more detail? What has been the most impactful initiatives across Arnold Clark from a diversity and inclusion point of view?
Like obviously I touched on girls with skills, but for me, I think it was a lot of the work that we done around our sales roles. I touched on it in my presentation that, there's some real, real bad stereotypes around sales and within the motor industry. And, I always referred back to an old Simpsons parody where, I think there's a guy with jailed back here and he's trying to he's chewing like a wee, I don't know, like something in his mouth and he's spitting and stuff like that. It was just such a bad, bad stereotype. And I think that, it's very, very difficult to get away from that. But one of the initiatives that we done was we had focus groups in terms of with some of our employees, and we looked at some of the issues that was facing our sales teams. And some of the things that we addressed is, and some folk might be horrified to hear this on the call, but traditionally sales was a 6 day a week working role. You were in there 6 days a week no matter what. You were lucky if you got a weekend off. But we took the really bold step, and we were one of the first in the industry to do it, to change to a 5 day working week. And the drivers behind that was to make the role more accessible for females, as it has been a traditionally male dominated role, but also as well to change the culture around that there has to be more flexibility there. Also with our product consultants, one of the big things that we done was in a rebrand, was we took away the old shirts and ties. How masculine is that? And how does that portray out in the marketplace? And one of the initiatives was that we introduced that gender neutral uniform, and it's actually worked out really well. And we've noticed that since changing the role of a product consultant, and changing the culture around it, we have had an increase in female applications, which is something that's been so great for us. And I think that that's probably, for me, one of the most impressive things, because it's such a bold statement. It's such a bold thing to change your whole structure of a position to make sure that it's appealing to all. And, I would say that's definitely been one of our best initiatives, and we really laid our cards on the table there.
And was that so the uniform initiative? Were you the first in the industry to do that, as far as you're aware?
I'd be lying if I answered that question, Lyle. So I'm unsure whether we were the first, but for us, I think our uniforms were very bold, and it took away that shirt and tie, like just old school selling stereotype, which I think has
Yeah,
just been so amazing.
yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Um, just cautious of the time. So one more question, I think, William. Again, so how do you track diversity levels? So you've spoken a lot about the data you had at the forefront, but how do you track levels, and what challenges have you overcome or had with engagement for this?
Well, I'm delighted that you've asked that, because I was actually kicking myself. I probably left that out of my presentation.
Okay.
So if my senior leadership team are listening now, I'm about to mention it now. But no, from our perspective, I think it's very difficult to track it when you don't have data. So, I've spoke a lot about speaking to your employees, and we are currently going through the process where we have conducted an employee census. We're actually sent this out to our 11,500 employees, asking them to complete the census. Now, again, that's a very bold thing to do. And the reason that we've done that is because we have struggled to track diversity levels within the business, because the only data that we have is female information. So
Mhm.
for us in particular, this census is going to allow us to take our D&I strategy to that next level. It's going to allow us to pinpoint and look more at other underrepresented groups and do what we can to create that inclusive culture. So I would say to anyone, I think the most important thing to do there, and ways to track it, is by speaking to your employees. But we will have a much better picture once we have the results of our employee census. And I think that, just to add to that, I think what we will be doing is we will be transparent with it. We're going to release these to our employees, and the results of this to our employees, so that we can be clear, transparent about where we are in a business and coordinate our strategy moving forward. But you have to understand, for us, one of the main priorities is that tackling the gender imbalance
Yeah.
that is so prominent in the industry.
Yep. Okay. No, that's great. And I suppose, is this moving into 2025, the results of that and the survey and stuff, is that kind of Q1 of next year you're looking to go through that process?
I know that it's been reviewed now, and I know that
Okay.
it's all been looked at. So I think we'll hopefully have some information, or some initial information, by the end of the year.
Great. Great stuff. Perfect. Well, time's up, guys. Thanks very much for joining us today. Um, Special thanks to William for that fantastic presentation. I'm sure everyone on this call's learned a lot about Arnold Clark and what you guys are looking at and driving moving forward. So thanks again. Just to let everyone know that this is the last, as William mentioned, in our webinar series this year, but we are looking to host more into 2025. So look out on our socials for that. So thanks again, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.